I'm Stephen McMahon from NIACE. I'm really interested in the model. I'm really excited, and I'm quite sure that Naomi, who I knew well, would be proud of what you're doing. I'm interested, though, in a question about what is the step that you've still got in your penultimate diagram? What is it that the OU is accrediting when it gives a qualification to people in a world where the knowledge is much more like Wikipedia? On what basis do you claim the authority to award something at the end of what?
Yeah, so it's a terrific question, and I think it underpins a shift we're seeing in higher education. So the shift is away from necessarily defining oneself through content to being much more about defining oneself through the student experience and the credentialing. So don't think for a second when I talk about moving them into the steps that I'm not talking about rigor and depth in the assessment and the credentialing piece of what we're doing. And indeed, particularly from an OU perspective, a deep passion and commitment to the overall quality of the student experience. I think what I'm trying to illustrate from this, though, is that for a lot of people, easing them in, restoring in some ways aspiration, I think it's a poorly used term at the moment politically, but for a lot of people, giving them the belief and the excitement that they want and can be successful in higher education is what I'm talking about. Once you move them into the formal structure, the things that you're talking about remain true as they do today, with one caveat, and that is if we think our teaching and learning has stayed in the dark ages, you should think about the way we assess and examine people. How many of you would like to walk into a room now with a pencil or a pen and have to write for 3.5 hours? I don't know if I could do it anymore. And even if I did, I don't know how meaningful that would be, quite frankly. You know, I really don't. So I'm not for a second saying that rigor and quality isn't important. In fact, quite the opposite. What I am saying, though, is we've got to recognize that people will get access, just as they did in the early days with us with BBC. They will now use these other channels to get excited. What the web does for us, though, is allows us to extend the journey. When you watched a program, it had a start and it had a finish. What we're able to do now is to actually extend those journeys and actually let people learn and interact with others who are like-minded along the way, and that makes it an extremely powerful thing. I hope that answered the question.
Martin, can you give some thought to the funding model? How are we going to pay for all
Sure.
of this? You know, the OU can give away everything that it's got, but at the same time, it's got to survive as an institution.
Yeah.
That if you're giving learning to the world, then what is the world giving back to the OU? So that we're not going to get away with blocks of, you know, £1,000 or £800 or $800. We've got to break up the funding model as well. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, firstly, I am one of the luckiest vice-chancellors in the world because I work for an institution that wakes up every day with a mission of social justice and access and giving as much as we possibly can. But I talk to the university about having a double bottom line. It starts and somewhat finishes with our mission of openness to people, places, methods, and ideas and social justice. But obviously, to be able to do that, the other bottom line is that I have to run an economically viable institution, particularly in ever-constrained public expenditure environments, which is the world we're all living in today, and I think we'll be living in for some time. But in actual fact, it makes good economic sense. There's a link back to what we were talking about before. If you talk to students around what they see as the value of higher education, it's about, and when they talk about the student experience, they won't typically describe that as the contents. That will be a piece of it. But the things, like in the Open University, when I talk to our students, the number one thing they talk to me about is the relationship they have with their tutor and the deep formative feedback that they get. And it's always been that way. And it's that personal relationship and connection. So me being able to provide my content to let people get inspired and achieve and to understand and restore aspiration actually makes good economic sense for me as well, because what they'll end up paying for is the student experience, the brand of the institution, the credential, the quality of the teaching and learning, all of which you get if you then step into the university. And just to put my business hat on for a moment, I know that at least 6,000 people who experienced the OU through OpenLearn have gone on to enroll in my courses. And I'm convinced that the more I think those concepts through, those baby steps through, more and more it will be a smart business decision for me as well. And you know what? I don't think there's anything better in life than when you find something that is both a smart business decision as well as right for mankind. It's kind of like the best of both worlds, which is why I get very excited about what we're seeing here. You can probably tell that, I'm sorry, but yeah. Does that help? Good.